Hi, welcome. So my name's Andrew Knightlick. I'm the founder and director of the Center for Executive Coaching. Thanks for taking the time to be here. This is one of our more requested topics for our public webinars. In our actual program, we use Zoom meeting. So we break into groups. It's a lot more interactive than what you'll see here. The purpose of today's webinar is to talk about what it takes to start a coaching practice, as well as to discuss quickly an overview of trends, at least that I'm seeing in the coaching marketplace. Ask questions anytime via the chat. I think I'm going to try to avoid slides today and just make it more just informal chat, just talk sort of from experience. But I have some backup slides if we need to go there. One of the things our program is not short of is content that you receive. So briefly, let's just start by talking about the coaching marketplace, specifically executive coaching. And I should note here that when I'm talking about executive coaching, I'm talking broadly. Okay, so you might be coaching the C-suite, CEOs, CFOs, COOs, etc., of huge organizations. But that's not all that executive coaching is, at least in the context that we teach. You could be coaching smaller organizations at all levels, first-time managers, high potentials, up-and-coming talent, you name it. Many sectors, nonprofit, for-profit, government, education. And again, the range of organizational sizes is up to you. My own practice tends to focus on small and growing companies. I like anywhere from 5 million in revenue up to 250 million in revenue. I find it's much easier to find and work with the decision maker to offer more than just coaching and really become a trusted advisor for them. The main trends I've seen in the coaching market in the last few years are the following. First, it continues to grow. People are really curious about coaching. Organizations, more than ever before, are using coaching as a professional development tool. A lot of super successful people recognize the value of having someone like you or me sit with them just an hour a week, where they carve out time to step back, look at how things are going, talk about key goals, key relationships, what matters most, perceptions, behaviors that might be holding them back. It's just so super powerful. So that's number one, increase in acceptance of coaching in places I never thought would be open to coaching: the military, oil and gas, lumber, places where you'd think people want to be invulnerable. You see people now open to coaching, and that's in addition to industries and sectors that have always been open to coaching, places like healthcare, technology. So that's trend one I'm seeing. Trend two is that Zoom, as we're here now, has changed everything. When I first got into coaching, it was very localized. Companies expected us to drive to them to meet with clients in person, and that's no longer the case. So you have the opportunity to set yourself up as a national or international expert, and that massively increases your opportunities and possibilities, right? The internet, virtual marketing, LinkedIn, all of these things put you out there in front of a huge potential audience, and that audience now no longer needs you to fly to them. So that, I would say, is the second trend. The third trend that I'm seeing is there's just always growth in some sector, right? So during COVID, when you would think everything was shut down, I saw a lot of growth in my practice and in the practices of many other colleagues in areas like technology, because technology at the time was booming. Same with healthcare. Healthcare, people were overwhelmed and were investing in coaching to help physicians, clinicians just cope with what was going on. And so that's really interesting. It seems like we have different sectors. And even now, as the economy changes, what's interesting is, a recession now is like a rolling recession. Those people who are in recession get outplacement packages and have money to pay for coaching, career coaching about what to do next. Many organizations are investing in coaching in order to figure out how people can do more with less. So I found that coaching is pretty much an evergreen profession. It's booming largely because of Zoom. You can be a national or international expert, and it's broadening and deepening. You can choose the size of organization you want to work with. Okay. So I think that's the overview I'd give to you. There's also lots of niches that you can choose, right? So family, business is a great niche, technology, healthcare, certain types of people or demographic groups. You get to pick. And that'll be a big theme of what we talk about today is how do you establish a successful coaching practice? Essentially, how do you market yourself to stand out from the other coaches? Okay. Are there any questions about what I've said? If so, post them on the chat. Nandini's asking if it's important to pick a niche. That is going to be the essence of what we talk about here. Okay. Positioning yourself strongly is super important. Now, today, I'm 22 years in as a coach, right? And maybe I should tell you a little bit about my story, and will in a moment. But just to give you an example of my 3 most recent clients, right? One is a Grammy Award-winning musical artist. I had never heard of him, but he reached out to me. He heard about me through another client. My 18-year-old and 21-year-old sons know him, but I didn't. It turns out that I heard his music when we were driving in the car and said to my kids, "Do you like this?" And they told me all about him without my having to break confidentiality. But anyway, his issue is he has no time. Making hundreds of millions of dollars in the music industry, tons of relationships, and it's just really hard for him to manage everything and have time for a regular life to see his kids. So that's number one, working on time, as well as his future legacy. We're spending a lot of time on his vision and how to make sure he focuses his time on making that vision happen when there's so many people coming out of the woodwork to take his time. Client number 2 is a technology leader. He reports to the CEO of his organization. He's a brilliant guy, brilliant. His employees love him. His clients or customers love him. Some of his peers he has conflicts with, and managing up to the C-suite, he has a lot of trouble with. He essentially lacks what we would call emotional intelligence. So this is a whole category. This is a whole niche that's out there. It's called the brilliant jerk. If you remember Arianna Huffington, that's what I think she labeled the founder of Uber when they removed him from the company. Huge opportunity to help highly technical, highly educated people who might have been called amazing their whole life. And now they're facing up to the fact that they have to get along with other people. How they motivate, influence, communicate is super important. And as coaches, we can help them. And I'm helping this individual become more aware of his impact and develop flexibility in how he responds. And the third situation for me, third client that I've been working with is a 32-year-old who's taking over a $500 million family business, while he also has aspirations to invest in other areas. Super smart guy, came out of a great business school, worked in private equity. He's been working his way through the company, but he wants someone to talk to, someone outside his family, about the issues he's facing and how to successfully transition to being the leader of this company and taking over from his dad. So those are 3 examples. Now, I'm lucky these days. After doing this for 22 years and running the Center for Executive Coaching, people call me. When I first started, though, it wasn't this way. And I specifically remember a conversation I had probably the year 2000 at a Pete's Coffee while I was trying to build my practice. Just so you know, I was a management consultant for a long time. Actually sold a lot of work as a management consultant. But that was easy because I was with a firm with a lot of partners backing me up. It had a big name. And when I went out on my own, I wasn't nearly as successful. The phone didn't ring. I didn't have a brand, didn't have a name. But I'll never forget being at Pete's Coffee with this person I had met through a contact of mine. And she said, what do you do? Right? We were having a classic networking meeting to see how we could help each other. And I told her, I come from management consulting. I come from this business school. I have all these credentials. I just want to work with leaders. And I'm really hoping you might be able to connect me to some leaders that are struggling, that have challenges, because I know I can help them. And what she said to me then hit me like a ton of bricks and really changed everything for me. She said, Andrew, I appreciate your passion. I get that you're a smart guy, but I truly have no idea who to connect you with because I don't know enough about what you stand for or who you help or how. And I had never gotten feedback like that before, but it changed everything for me. Essentially, for 6 months, I had been struggling and getting no clients. The reason was because I was using too many I statements and I was trying to be everything to everyone. I said, I'm a coach. Coaching helps people be better leaders. You must know a leader who could benefit from coaching. And that was falling flat. And it was her comment that forced me, or really just, I mean, I still remember the visceral feeling of saying, I need to change what I'm doing or I'm never going to be successful. And so it was there that I identified two niches where I was going to focus. One was nonprofit leadership. One was technology, and I toggled between both. And eventually, like within a couple of months, got my first couple of clients in each category. And from there, I can trace a full practice to the first couple of clients I had. And that's what I want to talk to you about today is how I did that, what we teach in our program. And now 22 years later, right? Remember back then, the internet wasn't really a thing. It was still the World Wide Web. And now it's an enormously helpful tool if you know what you're doing, but you also have to think smart about how you position yourself. So that's the purpose today. And I want to get into it. I suppose there's really two parts to this story, and we're only covering one of them today. You can't be successful in coaching if you're not a good coach today, right? The days of hanging your shingle and saying, I'm a coach, if you don't know what the core competencies of coaching are, if you don't know how to set up an engagement, if you don't know the language of coaching, you're not going to succeed for long. And the truth of the matter is that many programs don't teach you any of that. They impose on you their own philosophy, their own language. And I love it. I replace a lot of coaches, a lot of members of the Center for Executive Coaching, replace a ton of coaches that have been trained in ways that make executives and leaders cringe. Right. So step one is you really have to be a good coach. You have to know how to deliver value. You have to know how to help clients with their most pressing leadership challenges the way that they talk about them. And that's sorely lacking in the coaching profession. So I just want to show you two quick things, and I'll talk about how to build a practice, because I think the two things I'm going to talk about get to how to do that. Okay. So you should see the member area when you join us. That's here. But, the first thing we do that other programs don't is we give you a ton of content and tools that are directly focused on the market and getting results. And you see the categories on the left, right? We start here with what we call active inquiry. We have some public webinars where we scratch the surface on this for you. You can see them on our website under the articles. But that's like, what's the conversation of coaching? What's the process of coaching? How do you assess the client and their situation using data? How do you do an executive level development plan? You have to understand how to help clients change behaviors and change perceptions, but without going into therapy. And then the rest is the key things that come up for clients, like communication. How can I communicate with more impact? How can I influence people? How can I overcome overwhelm, manage my time more productively, or use my time more as a CEO? Executive presence, coaching on the personal domains, which bleed heavily now into work, helping clients improve their network of professional relationships up, down, across, and outside the organization. With us, you get a full library of over 1,000 coaching tools and methods. And, I'm just scrolling down the list, including career coaching and coaching the growing business, that will set you apart in the market. Right. So, for instance, when it comes to helping clients improve their professional network, you'll always get an executive summary, a slide deck, almost always a slide deck if you want to do training or facilitation. And you get like sometimes a 20 to 30 page toolkit, as well as videos that demonstrate exactly how to coach clients who are facing these issues. Right. So this is what I talk about when you have to be a good coach. It's not enough just to ask the same 20 questions. I don't know. What do you think? If you could do anything and fear were not a factor, what would you do? right? You have to be better than that in today's market, and that's what our program's for. Today's topic is about attracting clients. And again, I only have so much time to cover it today, but when you join our program, you're going to get a huge number of tools, including about 120 pages of business development guides, everything from how to price, proposals, marketing copy, selling questions that help the client figure out if they really want to hire you, illustrative proposals, and then hours and hours of videos about everything from selling demonstrations, creating online programs, business development with an online focus, the nuts and bolts of business development, and more and more. Okay. And I'm always here as our other faculty members to coach you. Anytime you want a conversation, I'm constantly reviewing LinkedIn profiles, marketing messages, and so on. Okay. So I just wanted to show you that before we jump into the content. And, the reason I do this is so that if you're interested, reach out. Let's talk about fit. Most importantly, this is our public website. You can see our different programs. We've just formed an affiliation with St. Joseph's University to offer a university certificate program, largely because I know our program's better than most universities. It's more practical. It's more efficient. It's less academic, even though everything we do is grounded in theory. But we have a 3-day seminar coming up, totally virtual, no travel required. It's May 22nd to 24th. And so now is a great time to join. It's the perfect time to join. And that's often why we do these public webinars. It's just so that you know about them. If you want to get certified, we're not doing another one of these until September. So now's really the time to register. And again, you can just go on our website where it says get certified and click the 3-day seminar. Okay. And I hope you'll join. And really, if you're not sure what to do, the place to start is where it says start here, and you'll see a whole set of descriptions about the program, our curriculum, what sets us apart, which is coming up. There's about 17 things that set us apart, and then a comparison of programs and pricing, just so that you know what you're getting into. Okay. All right. Any questions so far? I want to jump now into the content. Again, I just want to talk you through the pillars of how to establish a successful coaching program. Juan's asking if I can talk about coaching on performance improvement. What I can say is it's a great niche, right? My consulting practice was focused on helping clients improve performance. And what I found was that coaching worked much better, right? They often already knew what to do. They knew their opportunity, but they didn't know they needed someone to talk to, right? The difference, if you took two, like I did it in healthcare, if you took two healthcare systems with two different leaders and one succeeded in improving performance and one didn't, the difference was clear. It was leadership. And so a lot of leaders struggle with, well, how do I get this done? And they don't have anyone to talk to. And so with us, with our program, we give you some distinctions and some processes related to performance improvement, so that if that's an area where you want to focus, we show you how to use coaching to help clients improve performance in their organization. It's really very transformational. It can change a whole culture. In fact, with our program, you get a lot of programs like that. They're almost programs in a box. Change leadership, strategic planning, which works very well with a coaching model, improving engagement, and so on. Okay, so Juan, I hope that starts to answer your question. It's a nice niche. Okay. All right. Well, let's talk about marketing, and then let's get into some of your questions. If we can, briefly, what Brent's asking is, how is the 3-day program different than the distance program? The answer is the 3-day program includes the 5-month distance learning program. So you get 3 days, you get certified as an executive coach, you learn everything you need to know to coach, but you still have all of the other content that we can't fit into 3 days. Our program has 100 hours easily, including, well, actually, we're approved with the ICF for something like 295 hours. So there's a ton of content that we can't get to in the 3-day program, but the 3-day program does the job. All right. All right. So let's talk about what I had to learn in order to fill my coaching practice. As I shared with you at Pete's Coffee, it felt like a punch in the gut. It was basically, Andrew, I appreciate it. You're enthusiastic. You want to be a coach. You want to help leaders, but I have no idea. You're coming across as too vague. And the problem I faced then is the problem that too many coaches still face today. And so I want to take you through where to start. And again, when you join our program, we work with you on this. The very first thing you have to understand is why people hire a coach at all. Let's get into their psychology. And I want to compare coaching for a moment to something very different, which is plumbing, right? When your sink is clogged or you have a leak, something's not working, you know who to call. You call a plumber, right? If I wake up in the morning and my sink is clogged and I can't fix it on my own, I know I have to call a plumber. Very different with coaching. If there's a leader that's struggling to succeed or has high attrition in their area of responsibility, isn't having the impact they want on other people, is getting bad feedback, is overwhelmed, any of these things, they don't instantly say, oh, I need a coach, the same way we do with a plumber or with almost any other professional, with doctors, lawyers. We know when to call them. We know when to call an accountant. People don't know who to call when it's time to call a coach. So if you're out there saying, I'm a coach, you should hire me, that to me is like being a surfer in a lake that's flat and you're just slapping your hands trying to create waves to ride into shore. It's not going to work. You're going to tire yourself out. Coaching is a feature, but it's not always a feature where people know where to call us. Does that make sense? And so you'll see a lot of coach websites that are just wrong. They're saying, I'm a coach, call me. Or they talk about things that nobody cares about. Transformation is a great example. Leaders don't wake up in the morning saying, I'm going to do a Google search for someone who can help me transform myself or my organization. And yet you see tons of coaches putting the stake in the ground on this thing called transformation. Doesn't work. Doesn't work. Even if you found a client who thought they wanted transformation, they're not ready to hire you for that. So that's the riddle. I had to solve it. You're going to have to solve it. The way I figured out how to solve it is by not talking about coaching. If that makes sense. That's weird, right? This is a coach training program. Why would the founder and director of this program talk about not talking about coaching? The reason is because unless someone comes to you and says, I want you to be my coach, they're not ready for that. The way you're going to attract clients is the same way that a consultant or other professional attracts clients, and that's by honing in on an issue that your prospective clients already know they have, that's big, and that's fairly immediate for them without talking about coaching. In other words, you're looking for a problem you can solve or an opportunity you can help people grasp that they already know about. So that now you're a surfer in Costa Rica during high tide and you're riding waves into shore, the waves being opportunities that the client presents for you. Does that make sense? I want to get specific. But before I do, does the philosophy make sense? It's obvious once you hear it. And once I figured this out and started implementing it, I got clients. Thanks, Colin. Juan's asking about the skills of the rest of our faculty. I would just send you to our About page on the Center for Executive Coaching. You'll see bios of all our faculty. They're amazing. And they do different things. Like we have a faculty member who's an expert in assessments. We have a faculty member who runs our ICF mentor coaching group. And she's amazing at it, better than me at pure ICF mentor coaching. So she does that. So take a look at our faculty. Well, good. It looks like it makes sense based on what you're saying, which I appreciate it. And so Ron says, how do you figure out what problem an organization has? Great question. Here's how I did it. in two niches. Okay. And this happened right after the Pete's Coffee. Now, I was at a disadvantage when I started for a couple of reasons. Okay. I was still working for a management consulting firm, but I made up my mind I couldn't keep doing that work. I could not keep getting on airplanes at 5 a.m. on a Monday, returning Thursday nights. It was time for me to start a family, found a woman I loved. That was not a lifestyle for me, but I also couldn't compete with my firm. So I had to start from scratch, and I had to build a network from scratch. Okay. Oh, okay, good. Thanks. Jeanette's saying, if you ask a question, please send it to everyone, not just me, so everyone can see your question in the chat. Okay, thanks. And so I guess I say that for a few reasons, right? One, if you have ever taken any psychometric instruments, like I'm very low on sociability. I like working alone. I'm terrible at networking events. It's not my thing. And you can see my face. I'm not that emotive. Like it takes a while to get to know me and build rapport. That plus the fact that I couldn't tap into my network from my consulting firm were all disadvantages. So here's what I did. I knew, from my consulting firm, which was focused on healthcare, I understood a little bit about nonprofits. And so I said, all right, one niche for me might be nonprofits. And so I started talking to people in the nonprofit sector. There happened to be a nonprofit association or support group, almost like a chamber of commerce for nonprofits in my community. So I started hanging out there and just talking to people, just being curious, not trying to sell them anything. And I found out that nonprofits have a couple of issues, right? Often they have a board of directors that doesn't know how to make decisions specifically about strategy, or it's a weak board. Executive directors, overwhelmed. Difficulty engaging volunteers and employees because those folks could go and make more money elsewhere. Fundraising was another area. So there were key issues. So to Ron's question, how do you find out? Well, I talk to people. I ask questions. You could even do some research. Just call people up and say, I'm writing an article. Can I interview you? And then, write the article and you become an instant expert. So anyway, at that association, I said, I should probably give a talk. I know about strategy. Maybe I'll give a talk there. So I went to the director. I said, I've been hanging out. Can I give a talk on strategic planning for nonprofits? And she said, no, don't know you well enough. Right. And that was fine. So I kept hanging out there. I'd ask her every once in a while, say, what, I think I can do this. I've seen, would you allow me to do it? And she kept saying no. But then one day she called me and said, Andrew, we had a cancellation. One of our speakers is sick. Do you mind jumping in and doing this talk you've been bugging me about? And so I did a 3-hour mini seminar about strategic planning. 25 executive directors came. And at the end, 4 came up to me and 2 of them hired me to help them. 1, not even about strategic planning. So that's how I got my first 2 clients in that niche. And a year later, I had a pretty full practice focused on nonprofits. Nonprofits is a great place to start. If you're working at the board level, you're working with well-connected people. And if they like what you're doing, they're going to refer you to other nonprofits and also to for-profits because many of them come from the for-profit sector where they've been leaders. The other niche, by the way, I was living in California at the time. So north of San Francisco was my nonprofit work. I started giving some speeches south of San Francisco in Silicon Valley, right? I found one place that was like a CEO roundtable that was looking for speakers. And, I just called and I said, are you looking for speakers, right? Some would say no. One person said yes. I said, here's a couple of topics I have. One was about engaging employees. And so I gave a talk on that. And the CEO of a $10 million technology company came up and he said, Andrew, I loved your talk. The truth is I love technology. I hate dealing with people. I'm not getting enough out of my team. I don't know how to work with my team. I don't know how to engage them. Would you be interested in talking more? And he hired me as his coach. And so that was my first client in the technology space. So I had 2 niches. But do you see what happened there? I listened to the market. Instead of me saying, here's what you need, or here's what excites me, which you still see too many coaches doing today. Here's how I want the world to be. So come to me if you want to pay me to make the world the way I want it to be. That's so narcissistic. Doesn't work. You have to listen to what people want. Technology, it was so simple. I'm brilliant at technology. I'm an idiot at working with people. That's it. He didn't say it that way. He said, I love technology. I hate leading my team. I'm not getting enough out of them. That's a simple coaching engagement. The nonprofit leaders who came to me, one of them was, our board can't even agree on what strategy is. Can you work with us? And the other one was, I'm overwhelmed. I'm burning out, or I'm worried I'm going to burn out. Can you help me do things? I'm passionate about the mission of our organization, but I need help. Okay. So what does that mean for you? It means, and I'll give it to you simply, you need to come up with, I'll give you an algebraic formula that you need to figure out to be successful. Because once I figured out this, everything was easy. I knew who to talk to. When I could meet with that contact at Pete's Coffee again, I could say, well, listen, I'm making some great traction with nonprofit leaders, and here's how I help them. And she could say, that's great. Now I know, in my mind, I know where to put you. And when I'm meeting with someone in the nonprofit world, I'll know to make an introduction. And I'll know specifically to look for these things. Okay. So here, I'll give you a couple of ways of framing it, but it's the place you need to start. You don't need to know the answer now, right? You could join our program, learn to be a good coach first. That's super important, because if you're a good coach, you only need a couple of clients before the ball starts rolling, before people start talking about you, before you can expand your presence in larger organizations, right? Because your client will share about you. Works really well. So formula number one is, I help X to get Y. X can't be something general like leaders. And Y is a benefit that you know they want. So you wouldn't say, I help leaders transform themselves. That's a bunch of coaching gobbledygook, with all respect. Leaders is too broad. There's millions and millions of leaders. Transformation isn't something I want. You want to think about being a surfer, looking for the waves that you can ride into shore. So for instance, for me, I help nonprofit executives work with their boards to develop strategy that actually gets executed and helps them achieve their mission. Okay. That was a real thing. That's what people were telling me in that sector. I could have said, I help nonprofit executive directors and their boards create successful fundraising campaigns. I didn't at the time. I thought fundraising was too technical, and it turns out it's not that hard at all. I should have done more of that work. I help nonprofit executives who are struggling with overwhelm while playing multiple roles. Any of those would work, but it's the first one that I started with. I help technology leaders, or leaders of, I'd say, mid-sized technology or growing technology companies, scale their business by being great at both technology and at leading people. Okay. It responds directly to what my clients were talking about. Another way to frame this is, X comes to me when they struggle with Y, right? Healthcare leaders come to me when they struggle because their nurse managers are all performing at different levels of at very variable levels. Or restaurant chains come to me because their restaurant managers are all performing at variable levels, and they demand excellence from all of them. Does that make sense to everybody? Now, this is not always easy to do. What we teach in our program is the 70-30 rule. Spend 70% of your time on one or two niches, just like I did, but leave 30% open to what comes. It could be the market comes to you and tells you, here's what we want to work with you. The market is always right. The market's a great coach. Okay, let me see what we might have here in the chat. But this changed everything for me, and always has. It's what we teach in the Center for Executive Coaching. Like, if you have a great network and you're an extrovert, you're blessed, but you're also cursed. Because the risk to you is, you go to your network, and before you know it, you have clients in a variety of industries with a variety of situations, and that's great. You'll do fine. But you will have put golden handcuffs on yourself, because you won't be perceived as the best in the world at something, right? We know there's, what are there now, 8 billion people on the planet? You could say everybody's a potential customer, but you're going to get 0 customers, 0 clients. Why? Because you're a generalist. I can beat you on anything. Let me give an example of when I got beat. There was a synagogue that was struggling. It needed a turnaround. And so I went in there and said, I said, here's, I think, how I can help you. I work with boards of nonprofits. Guess who I was up against? I was up against a rabbi who had turned around synagogues and started a coaching and consulting practice. And he crushed me. And I don't blame him. I don't blame them for picking him. They should have. He had deep content knowledge, funny, personable, great coach, and he was going to do circles around me every time. Now, they still brought me in for some other stuff, which was awesome. And I'm proud of that because but the rabbi couldn't have done everything. But he nailed that. He helped them turn around, and it was great. So you have to understand that. I can beat a generalist anytime if I'm focused on a specific niche. So I'd rather have a smaller subset of the world's population, knowing that I'll get some conversion rate, right? A metaphor that someone taught me was, if you're looking for parking in a mall, I don't know if you still have malls in your community. We have one left. 2 have gone out of business. You only need one space. You don't need to own the whole parking lot, right? So think about that. You don't need to have the whole parking lot. And in fact, if you try to get the whole parking lot, you'll exhaust yourself. Just find one good space and own it so that people think of you first when they have a need, right? Some of you are going to get this now and some of you aren't. When you join our program, we work with you. You don't need to answer this now. I just need you to know we're going to work with you to help you do that. I've coached people on this in 5 minutes and it's right in front of their face. It's likely, the answer is likely staring you in the face. Okay, so it's not hard to help you figure it out. And you don't have to put all your eggs in one basket. Again, maybe you go after 2 niches to start, test them out, see how it works, and still leave 30% of your time for what comes to you. All right, so that's step 1, positioning. Before, like, I see a question, what do you charge? Everyone wants, what do you charge? First of all, if a client says to me, what do you charge, right off the bat, I'm not going to tell them. I'm going to say, I don't know. I don't even know if you need a coach. I don't even know if you need me. Can I ask you some questions first to understand your issue? It all starts with a problem. If there's no issue, it doesn't matter whether you're charging $1 or I charge $35,000 now for a 6-month engagement. Meeting once weekly with a client for the first 2 months, then I back off to monthly. I'm sorry, every other week, and then monthly if we renew after 6 months. It's pretty lucrative. But it doesn't matter whether it's $35,000 or $1. If they don't have a big enough need to hire an outsider, they're not going to hire you. The same way you won't go to the doctor unless you feel enough pain. You have to feel enough pain to bring someone in and be vulnerable. So pricing is all over the map. We give you pricing guidance. We know the market. And we share with you different prices for group coaching, one-on-one coaching, coaching the C-suite of a big organization, coaching middle managers of a big organization, coaching smaller businesses. But it doesn't matter. Coach pricing is all over the map. What gets you in is knowing how to coach the client through the buying process. That's later. Can't do that yet. Like, I could have been the best salesperson in the world, but it didn't matter because at Pete's Coffee, the person I was talking to at that networking meeting wasn't introducing me to anybody because I hadn't figured out how I can bring value to people. If you go to other coach training programs, and I hope you don't, you won't hear about the client a lot. You won't hear about value. You will when you're at the Center for Executive Coaching. So that's number 1. Number 2, are we ready for number 2? Second pillar. Any questions specifically about I help X to get Y? And again, don't let this stop you from being a coach. The answer's there. We can help you. You just don't want to be so general that you go to a networking meeting or you meet somebody and they say, I don't really know what you stand for. You're just a coach. You're a commodity. Don't be that. Okay, I don't see any questions. So the second thing you need is a good marketing message. Okay, you need to take, sure, you have a good hook. I help X to get Y, or X comes to me when they struggle with Z, or I'm a leading expert in whatever. If you go to most coach websites, their marketing messages are awful. The first thing you're going to see is too many I statements. Okay, when you write a marketing message, once again, let's get into the psychology of a prospective client. And here I want to credit a book where I learned this a little bit. A guy named Anthony Parinelli. And his book is called Selling to Vito, VITO, very important top officer. It's a great book. Not terribly applicable in some ways to what I do. He's a good cold caller. I never cold call. I can't. I only know 1% of coaches cold call. What he made clear when I read his book was that, like, think of a very important top officer. That's what Vito stands for. Somebody who would hire you. I like to think of, I don't know, Elon Musk, Bill Gates. When you meet with them, they don't care one whit about you. They don't care. If you start with, hey, I'm a coach. I graduated from this program. I'm certified. I have an ICF designation. They're going to kick you out of their office because you haven't earned the right to talk about you yet. They don't care about you. You understand? No more than you care about me. Unless I'm demonstrating that I have something I can offer to you. You have to earn the right for them to say, hey, who are you? Tell me more about yourself. So a good marketing message has to start with something that this very important top officer, your decision maker, if you will, cares about. So you want to start by talking about how you can help, the problem that people have. Actually, not even how you can help, the problem that people have. Like my first marketing message was, nonprofit executive directors share with me in confidence the following struggles that they face. And I listed them, and not just the business problem, but how it felt. They're frustrated because their board can't even agree on what strategy is, let alone developing a strategy. They struggle because even when they come up with a strategy, it sits on a shelf and doesn't get executed. As a result, the organization feels like it doesn't have direction and isn't achieving their mission, and they're not succeeding. Do you see what that does? If you're a nonprofit executive, you're reading that. I haven't even mentioned my name. I haven't used the word I. The I-you ratio is right. I'm using the word you 2 or 3 times more than the word I. I'm talking about them. So once you know what your niche is, you want to come up with a marketing message that grabs them in. You're essentially writing so that every sentence you're earning permission from them to read more. This is step 2, a good marketing message. So at a certain point, I'm going to change. I'm going to say, it doesn't have to be that way. When we work together, I don't even use the word I still. I say when we work together, or when nonprofit executives work with me, maybe I'll say they report the following benefits. And I'm going to list the results that I know I can get and the benefits and what it means. Your board will work together to develop a strategy that actually gets executed. This will make it easier to attract funding. You'll feel more fulfilled. You'll feel grounded. You won't feel as overwhelmed. You'll have less stress because the whole organization is working towards a strategy that the board has approved and that will help you achieve your mission. Again, not much about me. It's still about them. Problem we solve, what it means when the problem is solved. And now I believe I've earned the right to say, my name is Andrew Knightlick. I have this kind of experience. I've done this. Because by this point, they should want to know more about me. And I'll say, look, here's a couple of things you can do if you'd like to talk more. 1, I'd love to schedule a conversation. But 2, click here. If it's a website or LinkedIn, you can do the same thing. And I want you to download this 3-page executive brief I've written about overcoming overwhelm as an executive director of a nonprofit. And that's the third thing you need. All you need is one educational piece that you write that shows that you know what you're doing. So you could go and interview 10 nonprofit executive directors, 10 technology leaders, 10 women who are in Fortune 500 companies and are sick of the glass ceiling, 10 people of strong Christian faith who run small businesses, whatever your passion is, whoever you think you could serve best. You could go interview just 10 people about a problem they face and write it up. 3-page executive brief. Here's the findings. Here's how you can succeed here. And now you're an instant expert. You can turn that into blogs, videos, whatever you want. And it gives people something to look at if they're not ready to call you yet. If you have these 3 things, you can get a practice going. Okay. Number one, clear positioning. You want to be the go-to professional in that marketing. Two, a good marketing message that allows people to certainly contact you, but if they're not ready to, also allows them to see some of your work, some of your thinking. And it's not hard to make that happen in today's connected world. It's very easy to reach out to people and say, can I interview you? I'll show you the paper. You'll benchmark yourself against others who have common issues. And that's pretty much it. That's what I had to do. My first paper wasn't really a paper. It was an educational marketing piece, how to create strategy. And I got to present that to the nonprofit association that led to 4 people coming up, 2 people hiring me. Those numbers are the same even today. If I do a seminar, 4 people come up, 2 people hire me. Sometimes 0 people hire me, sometimes 5 people hire me, but the average is still the same 20 years later. It's really interesting. Okay. So those are the first 3 things. We're not done yet, but let me stop here. And again, the questions I see coming up in the chat, some of them are a little bit tangential to these 3 items. I just want to start at the beginning, because if you skip the beginning, you're not going to be successful. A strategic foundation is absolutely critical, as with any business. Who are you? How do you want to position yourself? Okay. Any questions specific to what we've discussed? And again, I hope this is helpful. I could put up slides. I could do that, but this is more, kind of just raw chat. I hope it's good. All right. I see some friendly comments, which I appreciate. Nandini says, is it important to have direct experience in the domain? Very, very important question. There's like 2 answers. It's kind of a funny answer. See, as a coach, I know I can coach anybody on anything. And in fact, I'm a better coach if I don't have experience in the domain. Right? Like I'm coaching this Grammy Award winning musician. He's worth like a couple $100 million. Honestly, I can't believe I'm coaching him. And it's great. I love it. But I don't know anything about the music business or industry. He does. And so it's a great team. The fact that I don't know anything about his industry means I'm not tempted to butt in and give advice and say something stupid or that hurts him or creates liability for myself. I'm an expert not on the what, but the how and the who he wants to be. On the other hand, from a psychological perspective, some clients will want you to have expertise, right? I told you about the rabbi who had, deep expertise that I'm not a rabbi. I don't know how to turn around a synagogue. He did. So even though I believe that coaching would have helped there, first of all, that client needed both advice and coaching. He's going to win. It sometimes helps psychologically, but I'll tell you, I've won engagements as a generalist. We show you a simple way, a little bit of martial arts in your language. If someone says, do you have experience? Like I won the engagement with the technology professional that I told you about that I'm coaching, who has some trouble managing up. He said, what expertise do you have in my domain? And I said, none. And that's exactly why you should hire me. I offer a fresh perspective. You have plenty of people that who have expertise in your domain, and yet they're still telling you you need to change and it's not working. So why not try something different? Okay. I'm not clear on the 3rd bullet. Okay. So the first, positioning. The second, clear marketing message. The third thing that you should have is just one educational product that you can offer. It could be a 3-page executive brief, a 10-page paper based on some research you've done. It could be a 1-page tool. It could be a quick assessment, just something that people can see that proves that you know what you're talking about. Even though coaching, you're not supposed to need to know the answers. It doesn't matter. Psychologically, clients want to know that you know something. Okay. Let me show you a quick slide just so that we make it visual. Okay. So everyone see that? And again, when you join the program, we work with you on all of this. There's tons of content. And yes, to Kevin's question, we do address using social media for marketing. In fact, we're going to get to that now. So once you have, so can I give example of educational tools? I thought I just did, but let's see while we're here. Is that it? Nope. Hold on. Here we go. You see, you can see how much depth we get into here. Here it is. Okay. So these are examples of what you could create as an educational marketing piece. An educational tool, for instance, in healthcare, I've created an educational tool for nurse managers of here are the areas where you should spike as a nurse manager. It was like a list of competencies that every nurse manager should have. And so they could download that tool and do a self-assessment. Okay, that would be an example. All right, the second thing, maybe I'll use a guide here, which is getting visible. So the next thing you have to do, the next pillar is, of course, get visible, right? You can't just put up a LinkedIn profile or a website and expect people to call you. You need to think like a scientist and come up with at least 5 ways that attract prospective clients to you. All right, so that you have a system and can actually predict your revenue. Again, as I said, I know if I give an in-person 3-hour interactive seminar for an association, I'm going to usually get 2 clients. If I do a keynote speech, I typically get 0 clients. I'm not a great keynote speaker, apparently, so I charge for that. If people want me as a keynote speaker, they got to pay me because I know I'm not going to get a lot of clients out of it. That's not the same for you. You might be a great keynote speaker and not particularly great at giving interactive 3-hour seminars, right? So in our program, we're not teaching you one size fits all. We're encouraging you to test like a scientist. But in general, there's really only 4 ways to get visible as a coach. And you get to pick and choose where you emphasize. I hope you see them here. And I'll talk through these briefly. Okay. And then maybe we'll talk about a little bit about the other stuff. Although, again, the other stuff is putting the cart before the horse if you don't have this in place. Okay. So let me take this down. You see it all, right? The 4 are relationships, educational marketing, being a leader, and online marketing. Let me talk about each of these. Okay. So number 1 is relationship marketing. That means building your network, building your power base. When I first started, as I said, I had a natural conflict of interest. I could not compete with my consulting firm. I don't even think I had a written non-compete back then. I think today everybody does. But just ethically, it would have been a bad thing to do. And so that plus the fact that I'm a super introvert meant it was a challenge to get out there, but that's fine. There's strengths being an extrovert, there's strengths being an introvert, there's strengths in between. You got to figure out your strengths. And so for me, relationship marketing meant more. So like there's a couple of ways to do it, right? Some of you might be great networkers, terrific, play on that. I'm not a great networker. I don't mind a one-on-one conversation at a coffee shop, even if I'm being told that they don't even know how to hire me or what I stand for. That's fine. But where I was better was forming alliances. I had people that knew me and trusted me. It took a while to build some of these. But for instance, like there was a guy I played tennis with. For 2 years, I played tennis with him, just social, just fun. And it took 2 years for him and I to start talking about what we did. He was a private equity investor in companies. I was a coach. He knew that, but we didn't really get into it. And then something happened like 2 years in. I said, hey, I'm going to this conference, thinking of investing in something. And he said, great. He asked how it was. I said, I was a kind of a fraud. I did my due diligence. I don't think it's real. And he was so impressed. He said, you know what? I think I'm going to bring you in to be a coach for some of my clients. 2 years. I never sold them on it. We just played tennis. But that was what I was very good at doing. One-on-one relationships where people who had lots of contacts trusted me, saw that I was credible, and brought me in. Another example was a pro basketball player, former pro basketball player. Actually, his son is playing in the NBA now. Great guy. 3,000 people knew and loved him. He truly salt of the earth. He came from like a dirt poor background, got a scholarship to college, became, a pretty good player, played in Europe for many years. We even wrote a book together. Knew 3,000 people who loved him, but he couldn't close business. So we teamed up to come up with ways to work together. Peak performance coaching, coaching certain types of athletes and elite folks. And that was another one. I formed a relationship with an assessment expert. He did assessments, I did coaching. I formed a relationship with a consulting, HR consulting expert, right? And she would bring me in for coaching from time to time. So that's relationship marketing. Now, again, if you're an extrovert, great, go at it. The advantage I have as an introvert is I don't put up with a lot of wasted time. If someone's not going to buy, I politely excuse myself. Extroverts sometimes take too long. They put up with people who are never going to buy too long. So there's strengths and weaknesses on all sides of the spectrum. But that's relationship marketing. Does that make sense? Just build your power base. We have tons of content in the program to do it for you, as well as to coach your clients and organizations how to strengthen relationships so that they have more impact. That's a huge part of what coaching is. So when you take our program, you'll get better and better at that if you're not already. Does that make sense? That's just one of four. I'll take you to a couple more. Number two, educational marketing. That's what I'm doing right now, right? If you give lots of great content generously, people are attracted to you. They see that you're an expert. They think of you first when they have a need, right? So part of my marketing as a coach has always been to speak, to write. I've written books. I do seminars. I teamed up with a community bank in my community and did a series of monthly presentations. They provided the food. They had lots of business clients. They wanted to differentiate themselves as being different than your large bank or other community banks. And so they were happy to bring me in. I got a captive audience of people. I didn't charge for it. And it was a great way to give talks about different aspects of building a successful business that could be sold. And that got me some clients. That's educational marketing. Number three, leadership. Let's say you do pick a niche. Let's say you want to go after car wash owners. I don't know why, but let's just say that's a niche you want to go after. There's probably an association of car wash owners. And why wouldn't you join that and become a leader there? Don't just do it like a chamber of commerce where you go to networking meetings and people are trying to sell you insurance and mortgages. Whatever you do, pick something you like and become a leader. Get on a key committee. Offer to organize a conference. Offer to do research on members. After I did that talk for the nonprofit association about strategy, it went over really well. It got great feedback. They paid me to interview 50 of their members, 50 community leaders in the nonprofit sector, about how they became leaders and about what their needs were. They paid me for that. And then they paid me to do their strategic plan to help them plan content. So by getting involved in that association, I was able to show that I cared, that I'm an expert, and it built me enormous credibility. You too can be a leader. It's about quality, not quantity. Pick an industry or functional association where you know people will be and where you can show what you can do by being a leader there. The other part of leadership is maybe, a lot of lawyers and accountants join a prestigious nonprofit on the board, and they get a lot of clients that way by being a leader on the board, not just by being there as a social climber or being deadweight. You could do the same. If there's an organization you care about, join, help them fundraise, help be a leader, help them shape direction. You'll find that other members of the board become attracted to you and want to open doors for you. A lot of attorneys, accountants, as I said, get their clients just by being on boards. Okay. That's leadership. It doesn't take a lot. If you're a parent, like my wife has brought me business, God bless her, just by, through swim team activities, for instance. Okay. Dan's asking a great question. How do you distill down a diverse background into a niche focus? Well, and Dan, you're in the program. So that's something, I'm delighted to coach you on and talk to you about. You just joined, so happy to talk. But yeah, choose the focus where there's a need that you can serve, where you're passionate, where you have a story to tell. And just realize that, take the pressure off. Use that 70-30 rule to leave 30% to other stuff. More than a few times I've gone after a niche and been told no by the market, but just by being visible, other opportunities came my way. Or in the nonprofit world, for instance, I started with very local, small nonprofits, but gradually board members saw what I was doing and introduced me to much larger opportunities, right? I ended up working with some national nonprofits and just started with, some nonprofits had a budget of $500,000 a year. Before I knew it, I was working on an $80 million National Science Foundation project as their organizational development and team coach. And so, the market will guide you if you do good work. Anyway, the fourth and final place to get visible is online marketing. Online marketing can be a rabbit hole, right? You don't need Twitter. That's a lot of noise. Facebook only works for certain types of markets. I found by having a LinkedIn profile, doing LinkedIn groups, posting good content, I can get some clients that way. Don't even need to hire a LinkedIn consultant, okay? The question today is whether you need a website at all, right? My advice to you would be, until you know your marketing message and your positioning, play around with LinkedIn. It's free. It's flexible. You don't have to spend money every time you want to change your message. And then you can create a website later. A lot of people don't even use websites anymore. If you're going to do a website, you could just do what we call a warm call website, where you do just sort of talk generally about who you are, generally who you help, and that can be pretty broad, just so that people check you out and they see that you're legitimate. Put some testimonials up, maybe have a blog, things like that. Okay. So let me just go to the final pieces here. So this is getting visible. Getting visible, by the way, when you first start, it feels a little bit like Sisyphus. It feels like you're pushing a boulder up a hill and you can never get there. Please keep going, right? Part of our program is about giving you the support you need to keep going. First, by being a great coach, which we're not talking about today, but which is essential, right? I have people, some of you might do this after this. You'll reach out to me and say, I already went to a coach training program. Can you coach me on how to get clients? And the answer is I can't. I'm sorry. A lot of coach training programs have already put you in the wrong direction. They've trained you in coaching in such a way that you're turning clients off and you're thinking about things the wrong way. You have to be a great coach. You have to be pragmatic and understand what results mean and what value means from the client's perspective. But if you keep pushing at it and you're a great coach, eventually you'll get one client, then two clients. You don't need a lot before it feels like you're on top of a flat mountain and the boulder suddenly is moving. You're putting one unit in to get one unit out instead of putting 5 or 10 units in to hopefully get one unit out. And if you're really good, at some point it feels like the boulder's just going downhill and accelerating. People talk about you. You're somebody. You're known as the person to call for the a solution to a specific challenge. So that's what I want to have happen to you. The only other thing I want to share with you, that we get into in the program is what's your default coaching package, including pricing? How do you sell without selling, right? Coaching is a great language. It's like selling. You're asking great questions. So we're going to teach you how not to sell, but rather just to coach the client through the buying process. That's all I do. When someone calls me and says, Andrew, why should I hire you? I'm not going to give them a sales pitch. I never pitch. I say, I'm not sure you should. Why did you call? Or what problem led you to call me? And I'm going to coach them through whether that problem's big enough for them to hire me. I'm going to coach them through whether they have a budget to hire me. And I'm going to coach them on how they want to work with me. Maybe they don't want coaching. Maybe they want training. I don't know. I'll do it all. So you want to learn how to coach the client through the buying process. And finally, we talk about when and how to write proposals. If a client asks you for a proposal, you don't have to agree. If I haven't discussed price with a client and a client says, send me a proposal, what they're really saying is, I'm not sure I want to hire you, but I'm too polite to say no. So, but I'm not so polite that I don't mind wasting your time. Go work the weekend, send me a proposal so I could just ignore you, but at least I'm getting you out of my way. The same way the Wizard of Oz did this with Dorothy, right? That movie could have been a lot shorter if the Wizard of Oz was just a little more generous, right? Dorothy comes up to him, says, I want to go home to Kansas. What does the wizard do? He says, go get me the witch's broom. And then the movie goes on for 2 more hours. Didn't have to. Same thing with clients. Don't let them tell you to go get the witch's broom. That's the same thing. Go write a proposal. Is the witch's broom. What I'm going to say to the client is, I don't know what to put in it. Can we spend a little bit of time to make sure we're on the same page about pricing, scope, and how you want to proceed? And then if they do spend the time and we agree, I'll say, listen, I think I'm ready now. If I put this into a 2-page document and it matches everything we agreed on, what happens next? If they say they'll sign it, I'll send them the proposal. If they'll say, I don't know, then I know they're not really serious. I can ask them, well, what do you need to do to get comfortable before I send you this? Because my time's important too. So we talk about that as well. Okay. So those are other keys that we talk about in the program. Let me stop here and take any questions you have about coaching, the coaching market, our program. Again, the ask here is that you join our program. If you're ready to be a certified executive coach, you could get certified with us by the end of May by attending our virtual May 22nd seminar. If you're watching the recording, you can go to our seminar page and see when we have the next one. If you don't want to attend a seminar, just join our distance learning program. We can get you the ICF designation and so on, right? Yeah, Lutricia, I see you've signed up. That's great. Jennifer asked, do we give samples of contracts? Yes, we have a sample. The ICF has a sample contract too. But my proposal and contract are pretty much the same. Okay. Julie says, does the program on coaching contain coaching roadmaps? Yeah, we call it more a coaching process, but that's right. For most of our solutions, we actually give you an example of the process. We also give you an overview of the coaching process 3 different ways. We show it to you graphically. We have a 1-page coaching plan, and we show you sort of an internal how to think about coaching. Okay. Do we have a coaching roadmap for different type of sessions? Yeah, well, our whole program is about how do you lead a good coaching session, but we don't think of coaching in terms of a session. We think of it in terms of an engagement. We want you to have a long-term relationship with the client. Okay, good. How many hours, Jennifer asks, how many hours per week are spent in the virtual 5-month program? Great question. Let me take you to our webpage, just so you can see what we're talking about here. So our distance learning program, if you go where it says here, get certified, and you click our core program, that takes 2 to 4 months. With the ICF, it's more like 5 to 6 months. If you choose how many hours you attend, right? So we have, if you scroll down enough, you'll see how it works step by step, but we have a schedule of classes here, right? So we have 4 faculty members teaching these. I teach one of them. And most people pick just one cycle. If you can commit to 3 hours a week, you can get on you could get on one of our live cycles of classes. And that's really all you need to do. Although some people toggle between them, it's a very flexible approach. It's a lot like Montessori. Like if you miss a class, it's no big deal. We record it and we try to make sure that every class stands on its own because we're looking at different cases, different situations in coaching. Okay, so if you can commit 3 hours a week, some people do less, some people do more, but that will work really well for you. We also help to match you up, right? Like under our member area, we can match you with other coaches if you just make your profile public. And you'll see, I can't show you the directory because I don't want to break confidentiality, but you'll see that you can barter coaching to get the hours that are required. And that's just one way we help to match you up. I'll do it personally with you if you're, I'll match you with others if you're having trouble finding people, but usually that doesn't happen. Good question. What else? Any questions about coaching? Brent says, why would someone do the 3-day versus the core program? So the 3-day is just an add-on. It's completely optional. It includes the core program, right? Our core program is currently $4,900. We'll be raising prices in a couple of months. Our seminar option adds $2,500 to that. So if you're not sure that you want to do the 3-day seminar, you don't have to. You could add it later. But for some people, they really want to do it. It gets you almost all the live hours you need for the ICF training. That's one. It's a great group of people. It's accelerated. It's engaging. It moves fast. And by the end, you'll have the confidence and the competence you need to coach, right? The people who join us are already successful professionals, right? Other coach training programs take anyone with a pulse. They take the life coach types, and it's not engaging. We get, we get leaders. We get an amazing cohort. And so people want to join that. And in three days, you get set up to get your certification. Okay. Jennifer's asking, what credential matters most to the C-suite? Our credential increasingly is really well known, certified executive coach by the Center for Executive Coaching. But the fact is, an International Coaching Federation designation is the most well-known coaching designation. Having said that, you don't always need that. And the best credential is you. It's how you show up, right? Like what I found is that the way I get clients, they're not saying, show me your credential. They're talking to me, and we're going to show you how to talk to clients, how to ask great questions, how to coach them through the buying process so that they see that you're somebody they want to work with. Okay. So Brent, if you do the 3 days, you get our certification, and you choose the 2 to 4 months, you're essentially in the program. You can continue to do our live classes. If you want an ICF designation, you might need more training. If you want to join things we didn't cover in the 3 days, you can do that. So yeah, you're still a full member of our distance learning program. Some people take full advantage of it, and some people get what they need from the 3-day. We're a very flexible program. Daniel has 2 questions. Let's see. Do we have experience helping mental health professionals transition from doing clinical work to coaching? Yes. We get a lot of people who are in the mental health professions, everything from Harvard Medical School trained psychiatrists to, maybe clinical social workers. I don't know if you would put them in that category, to therapists, psychologists, and helping them transition. You have a lot of advantages. You know how to do deep listening. You know how to ask great questions. And then we show you how to flip the switch for pure coaching conversations. 2, what is the range of income coaches make? That's a loaded question. It really depends. Okay. I'll tell you what the range per client is for, sort of a mid-level executive coach working with mid-sized organizations. On a monthly basis, what we see is anywhere from $1,200 a month up to $7,500 a month per client. And it just depends. It's all over the map. It's not really even correlated to experience. When I first started, I barely charged anything. What we coach you to do is to figure out a price where you're happy whether you get a yes or a no based on price. And then you can keep raising from there. But, it's not like there's a menu where you pick your price, or there's no union. It's all over the map. But we believe, and I show you a business model in the program, anyone should be able to make $250,000 to $350,000 as a coach. After that, you're really up against the time for dollars limitation. We've seen that anywhere from $250,000 to $750,000. You have to start hiring other coaches or leading programs that get you leverage. Catherine says, how long would one expect to get the first client on average? We have people who get clients within a month before they've even graduated, after they've started the program. Others, it takes longer. It took me 6 months, as I said, to get my first client. It's all over the map. A lot depends on how well you get out there and get active, how well you ask great questions, how well you do the tactics and strategies that I shared with you, getting visible, having strong positioning. Let's see. These are great questions. Kevin says, do I recommend fees be lump sum or installment? Lump sum. I always start with me, it's $35,000. I ask that you pay that up front. It shows that you're committed. I will do 2 installments where maybe I'll load 60% up front because I do assessment work and we start weekly. And then 3 months in, they pay the balance. I'll sometimes do that. I don't like installments. It's a real hassle to keep collecting. For me, I want a serious client. Okay. Let's see. Catherine says, can the program help people who want to work as a coach for an organization? Oh, yeah, of course. We train internal coaches. We train coaches that join firms as coaches. We train external coaches. We train people who want to work part-time, full-time, build a firm. It's a really flexible industry. We teach you to be a great coach, but we've trained tons of people who are internal coaches, people who are in consulting firms that are now adding coaching to what they're doing. This can certainly be part-time. We have a lot of people who this is what they want to do for their encore career. They're essentially retiring. They don't want to do anything too taxing. So part-time, they do the things they love in retirement, and part-time, they do another thing they love, which is staying active by coaching. Okay. Any other questions? Okay. Good. Yeah. So we see a lot of people who want to do this part-time. It's your encore career. That's great. It's something we can help you do. All right. I think we're at a good place here. Again, I'd love to share with you, why do I do this? Right? The answer is because I would love for you to join our program, particularly the May 22nd to 24th seminar. But if you're at all interested, please just go to Get Certified, look at our programs. And if you're interested, reach out anytime. By the way, check out we have a new Executive Coaching Hall of Fame that we're just building. So it's new, but I think we have 5 already. Yeah, we have 5 and a 6th one coming. These are alumni, and they talk about what they're doing, how the Center for Executive Coaching helped them, and can be, really good. But, just reach out to me. My email's here on the site under contact, right? Here, let me put this here. Just send me an email right here, and I'm happy to talk to you for a strategy session. All right. Let me take this off record. I'll take any last questions. Thank you for being here. If you're listening to the recording, please reach out as well. I do hope you'll join us.